Hi, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of Dungeon Delvers. Um, the today's episode will be concerning the rogue class and how to aggressively borrow with panache and style. As always, he's Gene,
He's Rennie.
and together we
We
are
are
unconventional
unconventional
heroes.
heroes. I don't know if we were going Dungeon Delvers or unconventional heroes. It's been so long, so I was like waiting for
We're
the.
fucking both.
Yeah, just to let everyone know that I completely botched our overlays a second ago and had to
It's great.
adjust it on the fly. So you may have seen me go, "Oh," with like a Macaulay Culkin face, and then switch off. That's on purpose.
It's just a little bit of Home Alone we wanted to sprinkle in there for us and you, I guess. So as always, this is Dungeon Delvers, and we are going to kind of do a deep dive into the rogue class and kind of discuss why it's cool, maybe where some places it's a little lacking, and we'll kind of go over it. But as always, these are just opinions.
Yeah,
Just
we don't know
hard opinions. We are not doctors nor experts on anything, least of all the things we know.
Yeah, we're not
but
game developers, but we have opinions.
we definitely do, and we hope to share them with you today. So, I don't know. Without further ado, Gene, do you want to?
Before we do that,
Oh yeah,
this
please.
show we do audience questions that you can post in the chat, and if we can't get to them in the middle of our discussion, we will use them at the end. So feel free to engage with us and ask any questions. It can be about Rogue, it could be silly, it could be both. We are ready for it. So now, without further
Yeah. No, there was some ado. Now, without further ado, I guess let's do initiative, and I can embarrass you on the internet like I have so many times in the past.
Oh, fucking dare you. Do you want to roll first, or you want me to?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, beat a 12. What?
I mean, listen, I rolled for that.
Slightly above average. That's all I got.
I rolled for that magic item in one, so you watch yourself.
That's true. That's true. It happened. It happened.
Ah, sweet victory to be able to go.
All right. Maybe the tides have turned. All right, Gene, start us off.
All right, so this starts with our first topic. Why be a rogue? Now, there are many inspirational rogues and that quintessential archetype that you'll find from your movies, television, books, comics, and all those fictions you like to consume, and even some real life. Actual criminals like Bonnie and Hyde and all that. All that stuff. Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde?
Hyde.
Bonnie and Hyde is a totally different thing.
He's a shapeshifter. He drinks a potion. Never mind. Wrong. Okay. So, for example, we have, those heist movies like the Ocean movies or even like Snatch, and some, Lock, Stock, and, what is it? Two
Smoking barrels.
Yeah. Then we got Indiana Jones, for your classic, like, archaeologist using a whip or, like, drawing and shooting a gun first because, you ain't got time for shit. Sherlock Holmes is a great example of, some sort of master detective, but he knows so much about the criminal mind. So what really separates him from the rogue? Laura Croft is a great video game example, using her, physicality and, mental acumen to assess and deal with all these strange traps and archaeological items she needs to find. Lord of the Rings, I mean, you have burglars, you have these, quick-handed and nimble halflings that are often burglars or rogues, but that does not limit it to just them. I mean, obviously, if we're going to go with Indiana Jones, how could we forget, Han Solo, who shot first? A swashbuckling kind of swarthy rogue who will talk his way in and out of most situations. And then again, another, video game icon is Nathan Drake, being, getting all those bonuses and stuff for, like, sneaking. Oh, another one would be, like, Solid Snake. Would be a
definitely
great rogue. But they all kind of come together under that umbrella of being a skilled hero. Relying
Right.
on wit, luck, and charm. Not magic, not they all have the right tools. No, maybe not the right tools for the job, but they make do, and they are always good to get out of a hairy situation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, and a lot of times, sometimes we root for those rogues, as maybe they have that heart of gold thing, and they're getting by with people who have laser swords and magic powers. They're just a guy with a gun and a sweet vest, and they're just as cool or important as the other guy with the laser sword, but they kind of do it their own way. And rogues are definitely a class in DD that definitely does it their own way. Um, and to kind of speak to that a little bit is that they are really your skill specialists in D&D. Just out of the gate, they get the most skills of any class in the game. And while, yeah, your bard might have his jack of all trades or her jack of all trades, you might know a little bit about a lot of things, but rogues know a lot about a few things. Um, and they have some skills that are very unique when it comes to finding traps, unlocking doors, getting past guards, all manner of these sort of like infiltrating and avoiding danger of that kind of variety. There is really no other class that is as good at it as they are. Yeah, sure, a bard can try because they can try anything. And there's a spell about finding traps, but that spell does nothing for you in getting rid of those traps. So, rogues kind of almost have this special place in the D&D sort of meta cosmology that they will always have a home because they can do something kind of no one else can, and it makes them really special.
Yeah.
Gene, you wanna talk a little bit more about that?
Well, and now to kind of like apply that besides out of combat, but D&D is a little bit about fighting. Most of the time you're killing monsters
Yep.
for treasure. And the rogue is really kind of that Swiss Army knife of adaptability. They're good in, close range combat with a finesse weapon or two finesse weapons, depending on your styles. Or you're good at using a bow or hand crossbow or different various, using knives, daggers, so you're fighting both in melee and being able to dip out and hurl your knives at people. You have this, and they kind of, with their unique asset to these special skills, and you know they are very mobile and able to adjust on the fly for what that situation needs. If if they know that, like, what their fighter or something is fighting one guy, well, they know that they can get around them and flank them. Or it's, might be the opening salvo, so they dive behind a bush and press the advantage from a hidden spot. So rogues are definitely good at assessing a field and seeing where their scalpel is going to do the most damage. Because in the end, they are a scalpel class where they pick a target and they remove that target.
Yep. With extreme prejudice. um, yeah, no, definitely. They definitely have that Swiss Army feel. They can kind of do it all. But really, where they shine is sort of those shadow arts, right? Sneaking into places, infiltrating into a club or a nobleman's party. Maybe using poisons, perhaps, maybe on your enemies. Really, all of those kind of skullduggery and sort of morally maybe questionable routes of adventuring and solving problems. Rogues really are the ones who kind of can get it done. And I think it's important to note that there is a fine line, because listen, we've all seen those heist movies where you are impersonating someone famous and you're kind of moving your way through the party.
Oh wait,
Is
are
it
you
morally
playing?
right?
Are you Julia Roberts playing Julia Roberts?
Playing Julia Roberts, the greatest mimicry in history. um, but I think it's important to note that, like, you know, make sure that while you may be doing these amoral or morally gray kind of actions, that you are not abusing them or making people feel uncomfortable or, you know, working against your party. Because listen, this is a role playing game, and sure, maybe your characters had to steal to survive, and you see someone with a big fat pack of coins, and you're like, well, I really like that pack of coins, but you have to take a moment and go, but I also want to play a game with my friends. And to that end, rogue a lot of times can lead to players maybe abusing that PvP aspect, and not even just in a combat sort of sense, just sort of working against the party for their own ends. And there's certainly a role play argument for it, but at the end of the day, it's a team game, and you're gonna find a lot more success if you talk to your team about it, and even out of character, and even checking in with your GM about what they're kind of okay with and what they're not going to let you get away with. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents
I,
on them.
and to kind of touch on that also, like, listen, I understand the urge to be like, I scout ahead, I sneak away from the group to learn more. Well, that's good, but remember, you're separated from the party. You're also, while it's tactically smart and it makes sense, if you get caught, you're alone. If you go too far, your party's so far behind you that it can be that moment that. So take that consideration. Also, you're putting strain on your GM to have to run you in your own little private game while the rest of your party's like
Right.
dooper dooper doo. So just take considerations. Now, there's nothing wrong with like being like, hey, I'm gonna go scout ahead, or I'm gonna grab my other stealthy friend and we both scout ahead. That's completely understandable. But just consider it that if you're playing a game where your entire character is I sneak away from the party and do a thing without them to get my own private scene, that depending on your GM or your game, that might be acceptable, but I know that I don't know if I would prefer.
Right, and I think that's a good thing to note. Um, yeah, Gene, you want to talk a little bit about how they can work well with their team as opposed to sort of
Yeah.
maybe some of those missteps?
Oh, absolutely. And so being a rogue, while you are the Swiss Army Knight and you are the Scalpel, figuring out exactly where you fit in, rogues inherently are a team asset and work well with others, either taking advantage of their friends distracting enemies, or even, like lightning precision being like, I erase that foe. I focus on that guy and really make them really regret their choices about fighting us. And
Hmm.
so their whole build, especially around their major ability of being able to apply more damage to foes, it requires you to have a little bit of tactical and teamwork coordination. Now, there's nothing saying you can't do things on your own and be super effective, hiding behind a bush. But but you're gonna find it a lot easier, I think, and not have to worry too much about action economy if you have a team that works well with you. And don't be afraid to give that assist. You're think of it as like you're either the opener or the closer. You either
Right.
open up the fight because you're likely really fast and you get off a really neat attack that hurts someone, and now your team's like, all right, we're gonna focus on that person and thunderfuck them. Or let's say you somehow either get mid or low initiative, which is possible. That means that a round of combat or something has happened where your team has softened someone up and you're like, oh, that wizard, fuck them in particular. and
Right.
like you close it out. And so I always find like the rogue being that they do a huge amount of damage on a hit, even at low level. They're really I'm gonna clean that up. They may not do it in one shot to open it, but they'll fucking hurt someone and make them be like, I hate the rogue who just hit me with that. So it's a little bit. It's really, since D&D is a cooperative game that follows tactics, it is important that you as a rogue know what your team can do and how you all can work.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that a lot. Um, and to that whole like assisting your team, part of that is finding your style of play. You know, if you like those ideas of being the trickster and being this sort of infiltrator, if that appeals to you, or you want to be that Han Solo type or that Nathan Drake type, if that appeals to you, Rogue is going to kind of let you do all those fun things of, swinging from ropes and running across walls and stuff like that. As generally a high dexterity character, you get to play into some of those tropes of quick movement, of kind of dodging out of the way, out of like explosions that would normally destroy an average individual. You have that quick reaction and that knack that lets you get out of the way just in time, right? So if that kind of play style or visual, sort of that visual gameplay appeals to you, you're going to have a good time as a rogue. And something that I think helps for me, is when you're playing a rogue, you're not just going up to people and being like, "Greetings, I am a rogue. I enjoy stabbing and stealing." Because guess what? In any society, they'd be like, "Please go to jail or just away from us." Like we don't. That's not a thing we want near us because you're just going to bring your heat on our table. But finding an archetype that utilizes Rogue's abilities, kind of like Gene mentioned earlier, kind of like Sherlock Holmes. He's got this criminal understanding, but he's got this sharp eye for clues and extrapolation and insight into how like motivations of people. So if you kind of go to your party and say, "Hey, I'm a detective and I'm really good at figuring out how people work and what happened at a crime scene." Well, okay, now you're talking to me about a skill set that I'm interested in having, in my party. Um, Same with an arcane trickster. Maybe it's like, listen, I kind of grew up on the streets. A wizard took me in for a couple of years, and I know a few wizardy tricks, but I know how to get in and out of trouble. Cool, great. That's a skill set that's interesting. So finding that archetype of like, I'm an archaeologist and it belongs in a museum is totally acceptable as an archetype. But I think it's important for a rogue because a lot of your abilities base around being highly dexterous, probably getting breaking in and out of stuff, dealing with traps, dealing with locks, and as opposed to being like, I'm a criminal, I'm no criminal. That may not be appealing depending on your campaign. Your campaign might be like, you're all criminals, carry on with criminal stuff, and that would be great. But like if you're an assassin rogue, you probably don't go around people telling that. That's just probably not how you live life because it's not going to go well. So yeah, finding that archetype, finding a way to kind of group your skills and maybe your subclass, even if it's down the line, kind of figuring out how to encapsulate that into a role, a job, an archetype, will, I think, give you a little more success.
No, I completely agree. I mean, yeah, and there's so many archetypes that you can fill out without having to be like, "Hello, I am a rogue." Like, it's I do this, I wall crawl and run around. Great. Okay, well, you might be a rogue, but you don't have to say it in the way of like, "I'm going to pick your pocket now. Goodbye."
Right.
um but also I think that comes with like there's a little bit of like a built-in RP with the rogue. There's kind of like those seedy underground, the secret gambling places, those speakeasies, there's this like built-in world setting to at least most fantasy and if not a bunch of modern and even sci-fi games of like rogues guilds, criminal worlds, thieves can't, the secret language that allows you to speak in code or pick up messages that could have been left around, almost like the Great American Hobo Code of like
Yeah,
knowing,
that's a great example of thieves can't.
yeah, and like knowing where not to go, where there's danger. And also it kind of lets you, see maybe like, oh, you're like, ooh, I'm in Coruscant and this place is fancy. But you go down to like the highs and it's like, oh, this is bad. The
Yeah,
underbelly of these places. And I think it's a very fun place to explore with the RP because rogues are the only people that get Thieves' Cant. There's really no other class or background that gets this unique ability. And now, bards can pick locks, sure, they can do almost anything. And so can certain backgrounds give you the ability to do, certain traits, but you're not going to have that ability to kind of talk in code. You're not going to have the ability to understand those full signs. And
right.
that's, I think, a unique thing to the rogue that really builds them in with a instant RP ability and like kind of way to find fixers and contacts that most characters would have to bribe or do other things. They don't know the secret handshake, as it were.
Right, right. And having that sort of baked in access to the criminal underworld can be really useful. Again, it's going to be a little campaign to campaign, but I guarantee you there's going to be a time where like, man, we really need a magic item, a scroll, a potion, and like the apothecary doesn't have it. Hey, guy who wears a lot of black. Do you know anyone? And sure enough, you might just. Um, yeah, so I think those are all really great reasons of why you want to be a rogue. I think it's time to talk about what does it mean to actually be a rogue. Um,
What?
what does it mean? All right, so why don't you roll for initiative first, since you thoroughly beat me.
Oh boy. If my luck is. Nope.
There it goes.
I feel like it's whoever rolls first. But you've rolled first and second.
I've rolled first in the past though and done great. I don't know if there's necessarily a order of operations here.
I mean, I'm gonna blame it on the fucking shit.
Oh no, it didn't work, huh? We didn't wait long enough.
I wait those 5 seconds, man.
I thought I did. Oh, but then it rolled it.
Doesn't
Whatever,
matter. You beat me
twice.
with both rolls. It stands. You know what? You should probably re-roll because that's not fair. No, I'll let it stand.
I mean, even with disadvantage, I beat Eugene. So, all right. Well, what it means to be a rogue, there's a lot of sort of when you boil down the essence of a class, like what are the things that kind of rise to the top, right?
Cream
and
of the crop.
the cream of the crop. Don't make me start a Macho Man Randy Savage stream because I will. So one of the things that all rogues are capable of, doesn't matter if you're an inquisitive, an assassin, a psi knife, doesn't matter. You are all about that sneak attack life. And just because, like, really quick, we're gonna step away from some opinion. And we're going to say, hey, you may have seen other streams. You may have seen at your very gaming table. Everyone, your rogue, constantly asking, hey, do I get sneak attack? Hey, do I get sneak attack? Or, oh, I get sneak attack, right? Oh, I don't. So I just want to clear the air. Here's how it works. If you ever have disadvantage for any reason, you don't get sneak attack. Even if you get advantage from something else, if you also have a disadvantage, no sneak attack. If you have advantage for any reason, but no disadvantage, sneak attack. If you don't have advantage and you don't have disadvantage, and the person you're fighting has an ally of yours or an enemy of theirs next to them, you get sneak attack. Okay, the sneak attacks can only be made with a light or finesse, or I'm sorry, a finesse weapon or a ranged weapon, not light, finesse or ranged. So that is how sneak attack works. Just to get that out of the way, because someone in the stream right now might go, "Hey, do I get sneak attack?" And
I
there's
mean,
your answer.
if you're helping me attack Rennie, get sneak
You probably
attack.
get sneak attack. And honestly, the reason to kind of bring that up first is because that's seriously in combat. Besides some of the more interesting abilities you might get for your subclass, that's kind of how you affect a battlefield in a meaningful way. Like Gene kind of said earlier, thunder fucking a very important target. Like if there's a wizard who's blasting down lightning on you from 80 feet away, well, guess what? That's a target you need to deal with. And if there's a pile of like lesser monsters or just other monsters in the way, it can be hard for certain classes or to kind of get through that front line to that back line. Rogues do not have that problem. And that's where sneak attacks, that's where it's all about. You see that wizard back there and he's just raining down magic. Well, you start sneaking attack him, he's going to rethink his strategy. And sneak attack is great for softening a target up, for finishing targets off, to sometimes just get their attention. Sometimes if they're wailing on your wizard and you don't, and like as a rogue, you're like, I can't heal you, I can't necessarily protect you, but you know what? I can give them a more threatening target. Sometimes it's good in that way as well. So sneak attack is really kind of your bread and butter. And I will say to sort of that end, recently in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, they introduced this optional class feature, which, by the way, before we get out of hand, I think that all of the optional Tasha stuff is fantastic and should be used in your campaigns. I'm not in some of your campaigns, so again, that's an opinion, but they are just phenomenal. And to that end, Rogue's got a special one called Steady Aim, where as long as you don't move on your turn or using Steady Aim kind of bars you from moving on your turn, you then get advantage on your next attack, which essentially is just sort of guaranteed sneak attack. Because listen, there's going to be some battlefields that you don't have opportunities to hide, or even some dungeons where big open rooms, it's kind of hard to hide behind stuff if there's nothing to hide behind. Now, halflings might not have such a discrepancy, but that's a sort of corner case as opposed to a rule. And Steady Aim lets you get that advantage, sort of, kind of, as long as you don't move. Getting that sneak attack off whenever you need it it makes it feel like you're doing your class's job a lot more often and with consistency, which is great. So yeah, Gene, you wanna kind of talk about our next point?
Yeah, and also to add on to that, you don't get that ability till third level, so it's kind of like you struggle for the first few levels of 1 and 2, but once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, that's what's
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but these can't. It's a RP. It's amazing. It's especially if you have a GM that's willing to work with you, and you have like a setting that it really goes into. Um, Honestly, I think Thieves Can't. I already said it was amazing. It's fun, and or if you even have like 2 rogues in your party, it's a really great way because no one gets that language but rogues. So you got to watch out if you have rogue NPCs. But if 2 of you have at least a dip or a level of rogue, it's a great way so that you guys can kind of talk secretly throughout the game and in front of other people while it can still sound like a normal conversation.
yeah,
And like secret languages are great, and that includes like even druidic. Like druids get their fucking super secret druid language. Super
yeah,
fucking cool. You know, kind of getting that unique thing that only your class gets. It's kind of nice, and not every class gets that. anymore. Like, there are certain
Right.
abilities, but like these are ones that you might use out. You're definitely going to likely use out of combat, and that's really cool. I think D&D focuses heavily on combat, so having a little bit of extra stuff to do while you're not fighting, I think, is a great, you know, piece of the game.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, and I really love that idea of like going up to someone and being like, right, oi, mate, so, have the eagles migrated from the mountains? And if they know Thieves' Cant, they might be like, yeah, they came in from the east. And that might tell you there is a rich nobleman who's ripe for the picking to the east of this location,
Yeah.
right? But again, if I walk by that conversation, I'm like, these guys like birds. That's sure, that's a thing that happens. But again, and on the kind of the flip side of it, if I go up to someone and I'm like, right, have the eagles migrated from the mountains? And they're like,
I
what are
don't
you?
know.
I mean, I haven't seen an eagle in days. You're like, cool, wrong guy, my bad. Yeah, eagles, right? Crazy. And you can um and so there's some fun RP, working with your GM. Like, listen, snatch is a great example of some of those like criminal terminologies that criminals use with each other to really kind of hide themselves from the law. And you can have fun with that. Because Thieves' Cant is a combination of sort of spoken word, maybe a hand signal or two, and a little bit of like drawn code. But there's a lot of just ripe RP moments with Thieves' Cant. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about another sort of staple of rogues and what makes them amazing as multi-class options is cunning action. Heebie, GB, GB. That is one of the greatest abilities, honestly, in the game. And again, it doesn't do damage. It doesn't do, but it's going to be able to get you into where you want to be and out of tight situations you might not want to be in. Plus, the with kind of action economy being such a, I don't know about overused term in D&D, but definitely a thing that you want to keep in mind when you're playing your character, especially from a combat point of view. Rogues kind of rule the action economy game. You know, pretty much every turn you take in combat, you are going to use bonus action, action, movement. Like, there is going to be very rare circumstances when you do not take a full turn of just every option you have. Um, and that cunning action makes you highly mobile. As soon as you get it at second level, it honestly makes you one of the fastest characters in the game. Monks and barbarians might be like, I'm fast too, but they don't just have, they can take 3 moves in a turn. Like, they just don't have that. And so that's why it's great for, rogues can just be like, I sprint. And let me tell you, if you ever need someone in your party to cover ground, rogue's going to be able to do that, even with that base 30 movement speed. Um, so yeah, cunning action, can't beat it. It's so good.
And
Gene, you want to talk a little bit about that speed and dexterity?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and also to add on to cunning action, I mean, also there are other cunning actions you get depending on what archetype you get that make it just
Very true.
even better. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so they're also built. They're not as tough, let's say, but they make up with speed and agility. And they kind of culminate those abilities to help them mitigate some of the more awful combat issues. So, one of the first abilities they get is uncanny dodge, which
amazing.
if you're not doing anything with your reaction, you should always take this reaction where they can kind of like take a blow, but not as bad because they roll at the last minute, or it grazes them opposed to pierce them through the heart. And
Yeah,
so that means that they can kind of reduce damage for one attack, which is just awesome. And especially if you have nothing to do with your reaction, you want to do it. Then they get probably one of the best fucking abilities in D&D, which is evasion, which is they can just not take any damage from anything that gives them a dex save. Or they take half if they fail, and that's just insane because that's your fireballs, that's your lightning bolts, that's some of your high-end evocation, or even certain dragon breaths, which are going to do a f ton of fucking damage.
I like the no F bomb directly to F bomb.
Yeah, fuck it. And then honestly, and then like kind of to round that out is their elusiveness, which is it allows it so that other rogues can't take advantage of them, can't get that flanking bonus. They are no longer able to. They don't grant people abilities to have an action over them, and honestly, that's I think really cool. Being that you know how to exploit weaknesses, you've kind of shored up your own, and then this kind of leads into yeah.
I just love the concept. I just love the concept of like, I've spent years getting advantage on others. No one shall have advantage on me.
And then it's kind of like you get to do cool things like doing rolls and twists and like flourishes with your capes as you're fighting through combat to kind of represent some of these skills as you're this very dexterous fighter, whether you move gracefully like a ballerina or you're on the edge of your toes almost panther like. There are many different ways you can describe how you fight depending on what fits your style, and most of the time you are a dex-based warrior. Now, not saying you have to be. Listen, for sneak attack, it just says you have to have a finesse weapon. Does not say you have to be dexterous to use it.
It's very true.
But yeah, and so that I think really kind of brings together their kind of defensive capabilities. Like it's kind of like that idea of like, wait, I'm watching this heist movie, and then you watch the acrobat come out of like that little suitcase and move around, and you're like, what the fuck? And like that's what a dexterous rogue can do. Or you watch like Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're fucking fencing across ships that are falling across sails, or any swashbuckling movie, and you're like, yep, that is a dexterous fighter. They're not trying to overpower you. They're not trying to crush you to the ground. They're either death by 1,000 cuts or they're doing precision strikes like Zorro,
Yeah, no, I definitely I definitely love that visualization of kind of using speed and agility over power and brute force. But something I kind of touched on earlier where they're kind of like why be a rogue is that they have, skills, right? But in their class itself, the reason they're so good is they get these things like expertise, where you can find a skill that you want to be good at, and you're not just good at it, you're crazy good at it. When you combine things like expertise and reliable talent, you know, anything below a 9 might be like, well, oh, I rolled a 3, so my perception check is a 20. And it's just like, I'm sorry, what just happened? And it's like, yeah, no, I've trained this hard and I've taken expertise to make sure the skills that I rely on. And a lot of people kind of go towards stealth maybe and like their lockpicks or the thieves tools. But, listen, if you're maybe an inquisitive rogue and you want to have your insight and maybe your investigation be your expertise skills, because that's you know how to read people and you know how to read a scene, and that's where your expertise lies. That's cool too. So expertise is really a great way to just highlight whatever your character is going to be great at. That's the direction you want to go in. And using that, the sort of thing I was saying earlier about archetypes and like that Sherlock Holmes or those inquisitives, using your skill focus as part of your RP. Because listen, any skill that gets your dex is going to be good for you. Now, granted, expertise is going to make it crazy good, but like Sherlock Holmes probably didn't have expertise in thieves' tools and stealth. Probably not. Nathan Drake definitely didn't have expertise in like acrobatics. He's probably one of our least acrobatic rogues. A lot of climbing and jumping, grant you, but he didn't do cartwheels and flips and slides. But history, you can guarantee Nathan Drake had expertise in history because that's the kind of rogue that he was. So I would say just use those expertise to show ways that you've just really focused yourself in those areas. And it'll, kind of shine through your role play as you sort of pick up those job roles within your party. Um, yeah. Gene, you want to talk a little bit about blind sense?
I mean, I think you also forgot the most important thing of your talk, which is reliable motherfucking talent.
I touched on it. I didn't go
Okay.
deep on it, but
Yeah.
no, that's fair. That's fair.
Too big to
Reliable
fail. Too
talent-
big to fail. Too big to
Yeah,
fail.
reliable talent is kind of listen. You may have only gotten by your wits and your will, and reliable talent shows that when it comes to like doing a skill that you know how to do, you've practiced, you've done whatever you had to do, that you generally aren't crap at it. Even if the dice say otherwise, you generally don't suck at the things you know how to do. If it's stuff you never knew how to do in the first place, well, you're on your own. But if you knew how to do it beforehand, you're going to be at least above average at it. Anytime you get to turn a die roll into a 10, plus your skill bonus is you're probably gonna have a good time. Yeah, you're probably gonna be okay.
It only gets better the higher level you are.
Right.
All right. Now I'll take it away. So they get a built-in blind sense at the higher end, which is really cool because the idea of like honed your senses, or you know exactly where another person would be hiding as you kind of like case a joint. It kind of and the big part of it is that you have to be able to hear, and it's not just because the idea is you have to hear your opponent, because you're not like some supernatural like tasting the air or feeling or feeling something on your skin. No, it's really like honed senses. You're listening carefully and passively. You kind of have these instincts, and so I really think that was a nice touch. Now, I don't know if it was necessary, but I definitely think it gives you another pocket for your bag of tricks. Another thing that you can pull out that people would have to cast spells or have unique abilities to do.
Gene, do you find it funny that kind of like that other ability, like elusive, right? That like if I take advantage on people, nobody takes it on me. That's blind sense is the same thing. Like I sneak up on people, people don't sneak up on me.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it makes sense. If you're so good at your trade, you know what to look for. You've trained yourself so much that you also are expecting it from others, like at every opportunity.
Right. I feel like there's like a little bit of paranoia built into the class.
You're a
which
rogue.
makes some amount of sense. If you're constantly doing crime or morally shady things, maybe you're a little more paranoid than the average guy or gal.
Crime is a tree that bears no fruit.
I thought it bears bitter fruit.
Bitter fruit, yeah, whatever.
But to that end, Slippery Mind is one of those abilities that rogues get kind of higher up on their levels that just gives you proficiency in wisdom saves. And that honestly, on paper, quote unquote, doesn't seem like a lot, but there is very few classes. In fact, they may be the only ones besides monks that gain.
Let's not talk about that.
That's ridiculous. It's 14th level monk is just like, oh, all saves? I'm proficient in all saves. Why aren't you? Oh, okay. No. But beyond monks, there is no real other class that gets just another third proficiency in a saving throw without a feat. Um, so it's kind of awesome that that rogues sort of living in this maybe this sort of criminal world, or just having to kind of shift their perspective so often, maybe with mimicry or infiltration, that they just have this ability that their mind is a little harder to crack than other people. And it's just a nice, it's one of those great, like, on paper it seems minor proficiency wisdom saves, but it speaks to the role play and the way the class kind of informs the character. And it's cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think another fun thing about the rogue is that you kind of, instead of like, you don't have to, you like, your archetype really defines you. And
Yeah.
and like some classes, yes, they help flavor it, but like your archetype as a rogue really kind of starts opening up your possibilities and kind of really hammers down who or what you are. And you can, and your archetype very much lets you customize your character to that like perfect extreme. We all know that you are going to be likely some sort of rogue, like stealing maybe, or picking locks, or investigating. But how you do your thing? How do you aggressively borrow? Do you talk your way into it? Do you stealth your way through it? Do you, you know, lie, cheat, and steal, or gamble it away? I've always found that, like, being this rogue kind of character, rogues are a little bit like lucky heroes,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
they have some abilities that allow them to do this reliable talents, or lets them kind of overcome, like, how do you dodge a fireball? I'm sorry, that's like a 20-foot cube of just
Right, it's centered
roiling.
on you. Did you just cartwheel away?
Yeah, like, it doesn't make sense, but you do it. And then you guys figure out as a team how that worked. But like, they are lucky and they're plucky, and they have, that's the character you're playing, and you kind of
The
define
old luck and pluck.
the old luck and pluck. That's a sex move. Anyway,
Definitely.
definitely. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about the customization of your rogue. It's more the archetype is really your focus than like
Yeah.
the rogue class per se.
Yeah, definitely. Um Yeah, and that's kind of one of the coolest things about rogues, in combat, and it's something we're gonna kind of touch on later. But in combat, you might find yourself doing a lot of rinse and repeat. Some combats are going to be more dynamic than others, and maybe there's a goal in the combat of get the staff away from the guy, you know, reset the lever on the wall, whatever the case may be. But in some combats where it's like these monsters want to eat your hearts, you better kill them before they kill you. As a rogue, you might just find yourself like, I hide and I sneak attack. I move to flank and to sneak attack. I keep sneak attack. He's dead. I hide. You're gonna find yourself in these sort of loops. Now, granted, you're still gonna be effective. The things that you do are still gonna be kind of appreciated. Um, but you sort of have to prepare yourself for that style of gameplay. Um, but the cool thing to me, at least, but out of combat, is where rogues have a lot of sort of very mundane and traditional uses. Where out of combat for wizards and other spellcasters might be like, well, I cast this cool utility spell that does a physics defying thing. Rogues have this sort of like, hey, I'm gonna make my perception check. I'm going to use this skill. I'm going to use this tool, and they're probably going to be pretty great at it. And they have a lot of out of combat utility with all of their skill choices. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if you're a human rogue, or if you just take as one of your feats, you take skilled just to get a few more skills combined with reliable talent, you become kind of insane at being a skilled character. And like while warriors or barbarians might rely on their strength and their kind of physical prowess, you rely on your wits and your sort of just your practice, your what you've trained yourself to be able to do. Um, plus barring magic, being a character who has a sort of stealth that is fairly reliable is pretty great as well. Um, and they again, we talked about it kind of at the top of the show, where they have this sort of unique uh higher or like spot in the D&D cosmology, that they are the ones who deal with locked doors, hidden traps, hidden doors, all that kind of stuff, and they are kind of the best at it. And listen, when you don't have a rogue in your party, you feel it. Like you definitely feel it. I mean, I know in Julia May Staley's Curse of Strahd game, I kind of play the de facto rogue, and I'm not great at it. Like I'm super not great at it, but I do my best. But when you have a rogue in, you just find that those sort of traps and locks and hidden things, that's sort of like as soon as that comes up, as a player, you sort of are like, cool, I have a job. Like I got it. It's my thing. And, having a place in the party that is sort of invaluable is pretty cool. Um, so yeah, out of combat in the mundane sense, they have some of the best skills and even tools out there. That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think I did like a quick math in my head, and I think you can have like up to 13 or 15 out of the 18 skills if you play a human rogue.
Yeah, yeah, no, and again, that's insane. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's. We kind of talked about what it means to be a rogue, some of the staples. I suppose, Gene. Let's move further into this dungeon and get into the meat. And oh god, I think Gene just failed the con save. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of being a rogue. All right. I won last time. Sure, I'll start it. Oh, I think my reign has ended.
Well, no.
I mean, you rolled a 4 last time.
Ooh, I didn't roll a 1. I'm impressed with myself.
All right, sir. All right, sir. Why don't you kick it off?
All right. So, this is our roguish archetypes, or, the subclass. So, this is kind of where you get to tell the story of the uniqueness of your rogue and kind of like really get that overall where it's like, oh, are you that fast-handed archaeologist? Are you scaling buildings and like slinking into windows as like a cat
Doing
burglar?
second story work.
Are you fucking James Bond giving the same name over and over and then murdering people like some sort of assassin? Are you
that guy's a terrible rogue.
He's an assassin, man. He's an assassin. Are are you Moriarty with this criminal network that operates? Are you Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot or whatever? I think
Poirot.
Poirot.
Yeah, Hercule
Yeah,
Poirot.
there's so many pulpish types of characters that you think of. Are you literally the Phantom? Do you do you punch people with a ring that has a skull on it and also use the powers of the damned? Whatever, not important. Are you Errol Flynn? Are you a swashbuckler? Are you, you know, dashing across, unstable ground as you weave and, switch to your better hand with your rapier? You have so many different flavors. And this is kind of where you write it. And I think what's nice is if you're kind of looking just a little bit ahead of your character, not you don't have to be going up 1 through 20. I've planned it, but if you're starting at first, you can kind of gear yourself like mentally
Yeah.
of like the progression and do it through role play. Like if you're, a soul knife, you're starting to get headaches, nosebleeds as, things are happening and your burgeoning psychic powers are about to explode out of your brain. You know, so there's a lot of cool ways to go. I guess
Yeah.
yeah. Would you like to I can start with Arcane Trickster or I can give it to you.
I mean, yeah, if you're on a roll, bro,
All right.
take it away.
Arcane Trickster. I love Arcane Trickster. They're one of my favorite rogue archetypes.
Yeah.
And kind of thinking of them, I actually thought of a new so just to kind of give you like examples. One example I had was like the Prince of Persia, kind of using some like time magic to manipulate. Though Arcane Tricksters really focus on illusion and I think enchantment. And I thought of an even better archetype, a better model, and that is the Shadow. Because he literally uses abilities to clouds men's minds and,
Yeah.
bend with illusions and darkness. And that is like the perfect arcane trickster. And he also has like
Speaking of the Shadow, if you look above Gene's head.
Anyway. But they get they get awesome spells. They're not as powerful of a caster as, your ranger or even a primary caster, but they get really neat spells that really supplement their roguish abilities. And also they get the ability to start manipulating things with with a mage hand that's invisible, so like a minor TK, or being like, oh shit, I picked that lock from 30 feet away, it explodes in fire. We're cool, guys. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. And then they develop the ability to like make that hand start like fucking Three Stooging people, so that you can start taking advantage on attacks. Yeah, that was a good way to think of it.
That was good. I just imagine now an invisible mage hand like
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then they have a really cool thing, which I think kind of tells a neat story of like the roguish stealth, and then somehow using their own stealth to make their spells harder to save from. If you don't know they're there, you are worse at defending yourself from their spells. And I think that's kind of cool because it's kind of like a version of sneak attack, but for magic.
Yeah.
And then lastly, their fucking amazing capstone ability, which is the funnest and probably one of the coolest, which is Spell Thief, where if someone whips a spell at you, you can make a save and now it's yours. And you can cast it with your spell slots, or at least just throw it back once. And now that can be used to save your fucking bacon if someone like hits you with like a power word kill or something weird. Or that can be used as like, oh, your cleric goes, I cast Cure Wounds on you, or what, or Inflict Wounds on you, and now you're a rogue going, whatchow, Inflict Wounds, deal with that. And so you can now get spells outside of almost wizardish spells, and it can really be powered. I know Julia played one back when we played Adventurers League, and she used Spell Thief pretty fucking awesomely.
Yeah, it was wild.
So yeah, Arcane Tricksters. If you want to do some wonky do magic, and also still be an awesome fucking rogue, greater invisibility, solid Shadow Blade. You will fuck shit up, and it's also
Shadow Blade. Honestly, when Shadow Blade came out, I was like, man, Arcane Tricksters around the world just got erection.
They're all just like 7th level, please come to me.
Yeah.
Like, murder. But yeah, Arcane Tricksters are super fun. So I'll let Rennie go into the other traditional rogue.
Sure. Yeah. So kind of a very staple, a very classic rogue is the assassin. There's assassins in every level of media. Ninjas come to mind. you know, anyone who sneaks through the night with a poisoned blade and springs out and stabs someone pretty fucking horribly is probably an assassin. Um, and I'll say this before I get too deep into their abilities and kind of why they're cool. I would talk to your GM before playing an assassin. A lot of their abilities take some downtime, especially if you want to impersonate other people or imposter other people. Um, and that a lot of their like surprise condition murders while freaking insane, being able to get a crit if someone can't see you is awesome. But listen, I'll tell you, if you play in a party with an evocation wizard who loves fireball, you're probably not going to get those cool assassin moments. And maybe it's talking to your GM a little bit, talking to your fellow players a bit. Again, it's never going to hurt to kind of check in with your party. Um, but there are a lot of abilities, in my opinion, that while assassin is a pretty excellent archetype for rogues, you might find it hard to get assassinate. Granted, you generally have a high initiative, so that might not be bad. Um, but infiltration expertise, where you create false identities, you have to spend a week and money to establish your new identity, which again, if you look at it from kind of a practical sense, is makes enough sense that you need a little bit of time to back up this identity you're making. But listen, if you're in a game where you're going to deal with a lot of dungeon crawling, guess what? That ability is literally useless. If this game is about exploration, assassination is going to be really big. Um, Same thing kind of with imposter. Now, while you need less time, you still need 3 hours to be able to mimic their speech patterns and their accent and their mannerisms. Um, but again, if you're not playing a somewhat political game or a city game, you listen, you can mimic anyone you want, but if you guys are out in Icewind Dale in the frozen tundra, nobody gives a crap that you are pretending to be Harry Jones and not your character. Um, so while the assassin is very powerful from just some of the logistical standpoints of being able to get those crits and your sneak attack just being explosively terrifying, um, and Death Strike when someone is surprised, being able to get that horrible, horrible murder, it's good, but it's very, very situational. And it's kind of niche, in my opinion. So I would definitely, before you commit to the assassin subclass, talk to your GM because you might find a lot of your abilities just don't don't come up. And there's nothing worse than having an ability on your character sheet that is just that you never use. So yeah, assassin kind of cool in certain areas, but be careful. Gene, you wanna kind of move on down through our list?
Indubitably, I do. Yes. So,
Elementary, my
it's
dear Gino.
elementary, my dear. Yes. Anyway, so this is the next, which is the newer one, which is the Inquisitive. Uh, Again, we've talked it over and over, but Sherlock Holmes, the Hardy Boys, investigators, and they don't always have to be, you know, expert detectives. Batman might even be an inquisitive rogue if you were to try to build a similar build, you know, if you're going more of the detective side. Then
Yeah, I can
right.
see Batman built a few different ways, but I don't think there's anything saying he wouldn't be an inquisitive rogue.
Yeah, and I really see they're I think they're kind of neat because they get a really a lot front loaded to them with their archetype acquiring. They get
Yeah,
they get essentially an ability to more or less bend luck because they can make it so that insight checks for them against lying people are never below are never below an 8. That is incredible. Anything that can set your die, even at an 8 and eventually a 10 for all rogues, like third level opening out the gate, that means that it will be very hard for most things to lie to you. And that's really cool if you want to play the human lie detector, or someone
Yeah.
or this could also be like another fun idea I thought of, like if you're playing like a charlatan who reads people's palms or sees their futures as an inquisitive character with your eyes for detail, and getting your figuring out what their tells are, or even like an expert gambler could be a fun inquisitive rogue. um their eye for detail is just awesome because they can use you know uh their bonus action to make perceptions against hidden things, and also investigations for clues, which is really cool. So you can pick up on things, and you're not even wasting your turn. Like you can do other things while you do that, or you can
Yeah.
even make another investigation if you want to. And then really I am kind of in love with their insightful fighting, because again, a big thing we talked about being a team player was that rogues rely often on other people to really get out their sneak attacks. And with insightful fighting, as long as you can overcome their deception, which honestly a lot of monsters probably aren't great at deception unless they are specifically geared for that, you can use your sneak attack as long as you don't have disadvantage, and it lasts for a minute. So you don't have to worry about, oh, you do it, then you disengage. You have a lot of cool things that give you this. And then eventually uh you start getting advantage for just moving at a half pace while you're doing certain skill checks, and that's cool. Um and then the unerring eye is really interesting. I guess because you're so grounded in like logical theory and like proof, that your senses are just impossible to foil. So you can figure out if someone is a shape changer or in the presence of illusions within about 30 feet of you, which I think uh is a really interesting ability for a rogue to have, especially being that you're so observant. And then lastly, eye for weakness, improving your sneak attack damage is just great. Always, you're a rogue, you always want that. So if you stick it out till the end, or at least the capstone, um, it lets you, where other rogues only go up so high, you're now, throwing a good like 13d6 at a person, and that's horrifying. Like just absolutely terrifying that you can do more damage than some of the most high level spells. And that's
Yeah.
awesome. And it kind of shows, almost, if you want to reference the Sherlock Holmes movie where he like looks at someone and then goes, I hit them here, here, and here, and then he does it and the bird just falls. Like that's a really good example of like, he was an inquisitive and he did it like that, that, and that works out. So I really think that this is an excellent class, and also I think it's a fun archetype for rogue that doesn't say you have to be like a sneak thief or a pickpocket to get here.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great description for the inquisitive. I also just love the idea of a hard-boiled detective. So yeah, let's move along to the mastermind, right? The sort of Moriarty to the inquisitive, the Sherlock Holmes inquisitive. Um, in my opinion, masterminds make excellent, if not the greatest spies you can be. A little similar to Assassin. Talk with your GM first, know the setting you're going to be in, know the kind of game you're going to play, because like some of these, like Mastermind and Assassin, and Inquisitive to some degree, but I think an Inquisitive could find success even in just like a adventure, combat, whatever kind of game you play. I feel like a mastermind and assassin, they definitely need a little bit of that, urban environment to be successful. Um, I think that the mastermind is super super cool. In fact, perhaps rad as hell. Uh, and you just essentially are great at becoming other people. Um, and they have that, to me, that very spy infiltrate, and while they may not be assassins where they drop from the shadows and stab you through the heart, they can get into the nobleman's house and poison their tea or something and get out again without anyone ever knowing the difference. um and again, maybe not just for murder, but they can get in, steal something, get out again. Um and so that mimicry thing they can do is pretty cool. However, the thing that I love the most about masterminds is master of tactics, because you get to use the help action as a bonus action. So essentially, it kind of becomes like a new use of cunning action. I know they're separate, but it might as well be. But you get to do a ranged help action, which is just incredible. When you can be like, "Hey, you're cool. Do it better." And you can just yell at your buddy from 25, 30 feet away, and they are better. They literally have advantage. It's incredible. Listen, because in some of those dynamic battles or in really tense moments, it might be like, we really need our wizard to make that Arcana check to close that portal. You know what? It's probably a really good thing to be able to shout at them and tell them they're great. So Master of Tactics to me is one of the coolest abilities they have, because not only is it very supportive, very team player, but it speaks to that mastermind where it's like, yes, you might be the conductor of the symphony, but you make sure each player in that criminal network that you have, and maybe in your party they're not a criminal network, but as a mastermind, you can't help but pull on the strings and the ebbs and flows of what happens around you. And Cypher Manipulator is great as not only just a role play thing of like, hey, I observe someone and now I just know stuff about them. But it's fun little tactical stuff you can do as well. It just teaches you more like, I've seen this before, and you get some amount of information about them. Misdirection, in my opinion, is hilarious, where you can literally make people your human shields. It's hysterical. Uh, um, uh, and not only is it hysterical, but it can also be awesome if you find yourself being surrounded. You can be like, "Oh, did you mean to stab me? You stabbed a friend," and that's never not funny. Uh, and then Soul of Deceit, while in my opinion isn't very powerful, I think it is, again, very flavorful to the mastermind, as your mind is so honed and so like good at crafting lies and webs of manipulation that it's sort of hard to get in your head. It's sort of this labyrinth. uh and I like that it even works against magic. It's like, yeah, no, I'm just a guy, but like, go ahead and try there, wizard boy. um so yeah, I think Mastermind is not only a fun class to play in a game, I think they make excellent villains or NPCs. um but it's just a fun subclass because it's like all flavor. It's just flavor upon flavor. And anytime a subclass or an archetype, in the case of rogues, really kind of highlight this story aspect of what they're about, I'm all for it.
Definitely. Now a little bit to the spoopy nature of rogues, which is the Phantom.
They're dope.
I mean, it reminds me obviously of a purple suited man riding a
Billy
white horse.
Zane?
Billy Zane. Does Billy Zane not acting? Yes. That's
Yeah,
what it
it's
reminds
just
me of.
Billy Zane like getting a
But
coffee.
it definitely like Kit Walker, the ghost who walks. Like, I love this character. It's who kind of like lives between both worlds, stuck at a crossroads. Um, and honestly, the Whispers of the Dead is like you always have the right skill or skill set for the job. Um, I think the Shadow is more an arcane trickster. I'm gonna be honest here. We already talked a little bit about that, Ocelotus, but I don't disagree with you on this. I think.
I mean, listen, and you could build one character or one fictional person in several different ways. Because I can see Batman being an inquisitive, but I can also see Batman kind of being a thief with all the like gadgets he uses and second story work and dynamic movement. Like, and again, maybe it's not perfect, but I can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I kind of like this idea of this almost like banshee-esque figure, and especially with their wails from the grave, where when you
such a cool name, by the way,
yeah.
just such a great
not
class
the,
ability.
Not the coolest name I've ever heard in a role playing game, which is To Sail a Road of Blood and Slaughter, but close
such
to it.
Name.
Close to it. Wails from the grave. It's so cool. Like, you can just do partial sneak attack damage to someone 30 feet away, and it's horrifying. Like, just the roleplay of it is horrifying, and you get a few uses of it, and then eventually, which I think another great name and another flavorful, the Tokens of the Departed, where when people die around...
Gene. It's Tokens of the Departed.
Departed. Are you a fucking cop? Anyway.
Are you a fucking cop?
The Tokens of the Departed, where if people die around you, you kind of like take pieces of their soul and form these strange trinkets, which, you can roll on the different tables. And there's a whole bunch of trinket tables now. So if you're using fucking Ravenloft ones, you can use Icewind Dale ones, there's a whole bunch of tables of trinkets. So you have so much to look into, and you can hold a number up to your efficiency. But if you spend them, you can just get more as you obviously have you and your friends murder your way to victory. They each have a very neat ability. Some are expended, and again, if you have one that you carry on you, which makes you much harder to kill, because con saves as a rogue, oh baby. And then death saves advantage, hell yes. Then also you can use Wails of the Grave through one of these trinkets, so you're not burning the uses you have, which is amazing, because that seems to be your kind of starting bread and butter ability.
Oh, yeah.
And you can also get...
You get a free Speak with Dead?
Yeah, a free Speak with Dead. And it's awesome. That's just... It's so much packed into, like, one little ability. Where you're just holding these little fetishes hanging off you, or a belt, or, like, a net, and it's like, whoa, or you have, like, a web. And I can see you really flavoring it. Ghostwalk is... Right. How would you like to become a spectral creature that just fly through shit and
Oh, you're a rogue? Would you like to walk through walls?
Yeah, and also there's nothing saying vampiric, or even the new Dampier lineage could be really fun. But also, like, this kind of like ghost walk thing, there was nothing saying here that you can't attack. You can't do all your cool rogue stuff. It's just things are harder to hurt you. So you get a little bit of like I now have a little bit of ghost armor, and I'm a little tougher, and I can go through things. Ghost armor. And then the last one is real mean, because not only did you just stab someone, but you then also made them take additional damage, and their friend also takes additional damage as you activate another Wails from the Grave. And also, just in case you haven't been killing enough, you always start a long rest with a soul trinket. And that's pretty cool, especially if your GM's kind of rolling with that flavor, It could be someone close to you. It could be a person you fought a day ago. It could be maybe a plot soul that asking a question to could be very important. So they are an extremely versatile rogue, especially with their skills, but also extremely deadly with their ability to kind of hurt others and use their, dope ass ghostliness to kind of infiltrate. So yeah, I would definitely play a Phantom Rogue. I don't know how I would design him, but looking at what I just read, that could be a really cool character. MP
Yeah,
Phantom Rogue. Yeah,
I agree. And honestly, I feel they're one of the few supernatural rogues because, like, there's a handful: Arcane Trickster, Psy Knife, stuff like that. But they have very like, no, we straight up like have a connection with the other side. Like, there's no like, ooh, is it magic? Is it nope? This is straight up soul manipulation. Um, and they have this really cool like to me they're kind of ripe for customizations. Maybe all your soul triggers appear as like butterfly pins because of background reasons. Your dead wife loved butterflies, and when whatever, like it to me it just seems so ready for story, and I love that. I do want to talk a little bit about our next archetype, which is the scout. To me, they're very much kind of like the traditional like Lord of the Rings ranger, kind of like Boromir, and some of the Gondorians of like, these guys are good in nature. They blend well in the woods, but they have no magic powers. They don't. They don't call upon the elven winds to heal or communicate. These are just guys who are at home in the woods and know how to mask their sight, mask their presence. They make like cool bounty hunters. To me, scouts are really cool if you want to be kind of a nature themed character, but very steeped in mundanity. Like, they are, while some of their abilities are exceptional, there is no magic that happens with them to demonstrate their skill and ability in the woods. Uh but they're neat to me. They're very they have skirmisher, which makes them very mobile. And scout to me seems like a very mobile kind of rogue. Which again, if you really want to play that speed game, because I know some people love to, hey, I'm gonna be
I
a
got
tabaxi.
a need for speed.
Or speed, yeah. Some people love to play that, like, all right, what lineage gives me extra movement? I'll take the mobile feat, and I'll just move at 50, 55 feet around as my movement. Like, that's cool, right? That's cool for you. And don't get me wrong, it is cool. But these guys can kind of really take advantage of a high movement speed. Um, Survivalist is great. It's more skills, and rogues, they fucking love their skills. Uh, Superior mobility, again, walking speed increase. You can really, with mobility and a lineage that gives you +5 movement speed, you can literally do that 55 movement speed I said. And maybe get yourself a pair of boots of speed, and break the sound barrier occasionally, because let me tell you, with boots of speed and a 55 base movement speed, it gets out of hand real fast. Just real fast. Um, Ambush Master is neat. Getting advantage on initiative rolls. Again, I think that's mediocre, but you do give again, it's sort of a helpful ability to give allies advantage. So that's nice. I don't think it's great, but it's nice. It just speaks to that mobility, that reaction time. And then Sudden Strike, though, is just bananas. That shit is BANANAS, bananas. Getting a second turn. I'm sorry, getting an extra attack as a bonus action that you can sneak attack with. That's horrifying. There's very few ways you get to sneak attack more than once in a round. In fact, there's really none. But and Whale of the Grave kind of lets you do a truncated sneak attack to a second person. This is 2 full sneak attacks, and that's going to be bad news. I mean, you don't get until 17th level, but at that point, you're doing so much extra damage that, you know, if people kind of let you be and, perform your murderous arts to your heart's content, that fight isn't going to last long. So, yeah, scouts are neat. Again, if you want to be, maybe not monk fast, but like really close, if not maybe a little faster than some monks. Scout's going to treat you well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess going on with another, not magically, but mystical-ish, which is the Soul Knife. And when I think of the Soul Knife, I think of like Psylocke from the X-Men, like Sentinel Jedis, or even if you look at like Mass Effect, when people made those like Omni blades appear out of their hand when they did the melee attack.
Yeah.
Um, I really like the new psionic power mechanic of having this weird floating die. I think it's kind of interesting. I think it doesn't make it so it's like identical to spell casting, and I think it really worked well for the Psi Knight, and I think it's cool for the the Soul Knife. Their starting stuff again now kind of focuses on that ability of rogues to be skillful, and much like the rogues' kind of reliableness, their psionic dice are a little bit reliable, because if they use their psionic dice on certain abilities and it doesn't succeed, they don't expend the die. So it's almost worth the risk every time, because you don't have to worry if you fail, because you're not losing it, you're not wasting it. Psychic Whispers is awesome because telepathy is cool and neat.
Oh, heck yeah.
And as your side die increases, that's more hours, and as your proficiency increases, that's more people. You can kind of become the psionic hub. I am worried for my game on Tuesday when that happens, because that
Yeah,
means
Gene, you should be.
my
You
party
should be.
won't have to talk, and that'll be weird. um, Psychic Blades, obviously your big shebang. Um, which is they get an attack weapon that is essentially a D6 finesse thrown weapon that has 60 feet range, and it deals psychic damage, which is a D6 plus whatever you use to fight with it.
Probably dexterity.
Probably Dex, because I don't see it doesn't give you another option. Oh, I guess you could use Strength technically.
Yeah, you could.
And also, it's kind of nice that it gives you a free offhand attack that does full ability score damage, because it does the same exact thing, except the die step is just lowered, and that's a really cool thing that doesn't happen for offhand attacks unless you take a weapon style for that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a downside where it specifically, if you attack with them, they disappear. Though I as a GM would likely home rule that you can use them for opportunity attacks.
Right.
A little bit strange that you can. Their next ability, Soul Blades, which kind of like I guess is the next enhancement of their psychic blades, kind of infused with their soul self. They can essentially roll that side die on a miss, and if they hit with it, they spend the die. If they don't lose the die. So always, as Rennie would say, always take the gamble. And also psychic teleportation. That is fucking
Crazy.
cool. You want mobility, a bonus action teleport? Holy butts. And also, at that level, your side eye's higher, so you have a chance to go from 10 to 80 feet. Woo. You can get real janky.
Yeah.
The psychic veil is super nice. Being able to turn invisible, more or less mimics invisibility. Yeah. So it mimics invisibility, and you can use it once, long rests, or just spend side dice to get it back or to use it again. Then their capstone is awesome because there's very little things that can stun you, and as a rogue, being able to stun an opponent and making it a wisdom save as opposed to that con save that monks always worry about because most monsters are super tough. Really cool. It is very expensive to recharge, and I think it makes sense why. Because this stun lasts a minute, and they save at the end of their turn. So that means that can be free sneak attacks for a while, depending on what you lock down. Yeah, they're opposed to other types of rogues. I would say this is an extremely powerful combat build. Though their psychic die can augment skill checks, they are mostly focused on psychically beating you up.
Yeah, they're pretty good at it too.
Real good. You get the best.
Cool.
The best rogue. You get the best rogue. I'm so jealous.
You know, G, do you want to take this one? Because you've played a swashbuckler for a long time. I'll take the last one. I'll take the last two, and then you take this one.
Well, no, but there's only 3 left. Okay, that's
all right.
All right.
Well, it's up to you, man.
Gosh, I love swashbuckler. They're the best. You got Zorro, you got, pirates, you got your smarmy charisma rogue, you got your Puss in Boots, you got Han Solo. Yeah, you heard me, Puss in Boots.
I love how you put Puss in Boots between like Han Solo and Zorro.
You got the Dread Pirate Roberts, all those great things.
Yeah, definitely.
They get like a baby's first mobility, which is amazing. As a rogue, you don't have to waste that bonus action to disengage. It means you can run around, swing on trees and ropes and sails as you fight your way. They also get the ability to kind of like square off in that like gentlemanly duel of honor and still get their sneak attack because they are precise warriors. That's like the minor fun stuff. Also, they believe so much in themselves that they are so charismatic they get to add it to initiative, which is great.
I feel like every time a fight starts, though, you have to be like, ha
ha! I can do this, and I am good enough. And then you draw your sword.
You have to pep talk yourself a little bit before you get into fights.
Then, honestly, this is, I think, one of their bread and butter abilities. Their 9th level ability.
It's crazy.
Is literally insane. Where they have panache. And it allows you to either make someone hate you and want to fight you the most because you become the most annoying. So that's you, cutting a quip across the battlefield and it really stinging hard. And they're like, I hate that guy. Versus it's your persuasion versus their insight. Or if you're just talking on a street with someone, you do a quick action of like, oh man, your hair looks really nice today. And you do the same check, and if they fail, they're charmed by you for a minute. It's not magical. They're just like, wow, that guy's nice. He's a friendly acquaintance. And then if you do anything harmful, it breaks. But with that roguish, skill reliability, with that roguish skill expertise, and also it kind of bypasses some of those more powerful creatures like legendary resistances because it's a skill check. And those monsters aren't always designed to be as quippy and wise, as a PC. Like it's a great, like if you could play like a master merchant because you could do that like drive-by agreements, handshake, 1 minute later.
Disagree.
I really disagree. And you had that amazing deal because they thought you were a really good friend. Then they kind of go back to like emphasizing your dueling and fighting where you can kind of spend a bonus action to look sweet as shit. I imagine that's the only way it does. And then you have an advantage on like acrobatics and athletics. So you can do your swing across, cut a chandelier, fly up in the air, like land on top of a fucking like beam while you fence a captain, like for no reason that it just had to happen. Or like, cutting the rope in like a playhouse and you sailing up around things. Um, and then also their last ability, kind of like playing in with their like luck and precision, is their ability to master duelist. Where it's like, cool, I missed. Nah, I'm gonna reroll that with advantage. And then if you
Right.
pair that with that capstone of rogue, where they get rerolls because they're lucky or whatever it's called, um, you're kind of able to kind of bend a situation from bad to amazingly in your favor.
Yeah.
And that's my quick breakdown of how fucking awesome Swashbuckler is, and how you can
I will
smooth.
say, I just wanted to say, I think panache is crazy because, like, listen, charming people, that's fine, but to just be an action of like, hey, bam, and there's not like proficiency bonus, your charisma modifier. You can just walk down the street like, what's up, looking good, hey, and you
Yeah.
can just charm, 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 charm. You just
You're the
and don't get me
original
wrong,
party worm.
yeah, straight up, like your GM should probably, I hope, penalize you for being a jerk like that. But like, according to Panache, you're like, what are you talking about? That's just who I am. This is just me.
Everyone loves me because I'm awesome all the time. Get on
um,
board.
yeah, yeah. No, and Swashbuckler, Gene's right. It's pretty cool. And the nice thing too that Gene didn't exactly mention, but you get to kind of do your sneak attack in a new way. That you get to kind of do these one-on-one fights, and as long as you're in that one-on-one back and forth with sword and quip, you can kind of still get your sneak attack, which is great. All right, I will close us out with the very classic, the very almost iconic version of Rogue, which is Thief, which was what the Rogue class was originally called for those old heads in the chat. But some great examples of thief archetypes are like Lara Croft, all her jumping and climbing, and I'm thinking a little more classic Lara Croft than current Lara Croft, because current Lara Croft is probably a little bit more like a scout because she's in nature all the time and doing all kinds of sneaking and bow shooting people in the brain. But kind of classic Lara Croft, these deep dungeons and pyramids and underground. Um, Bilbo Baggins, your burglar, if you will. While he might not have been great at being a rogue, he still has some qualities that count there. I think Nathan Drake is a great example of a thief. Um, and yeah, so let's kind of get into it because it's pretty freaking cool. So your first ability kind of gives you almost like a climb speed, or your second ability technically, but essentially gives you a climb speed. Climbing is no longer halved, which means you climb at your normal speed, which is not exactly a climbing speed, but it's not exactly not a climbing speed either. Um, being able to use sleight of hand checks or use an object checks with your cunning action makes your cunning action just the amount of stuff you can pull off with it gets, if you're a little clever and maybe you're a little smarmy, pickpocketing your foes before you kill them, using wizard wands that you find, it's all fun. Giving you a little extra jumping, I think is okay, but that climb speed is really cool. Supreme Sneak is again, are you a rogue? Do you like sneaking? Well, you're the goddamn best. You're the goddamn best. Um, the really like shining fucking star of Thief, and kind of the reason that Thief will always be included in discussion of like what's a good rogue build and what's a bad rogue build is use magic device is just incredible. Like you're like, oh, this Holy Avenger, yeah, I can use it. What? Can you not? Ah, whatever. Like, oh, Staff of Power, Robe of the Archmagi? Yeah, they're great. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, and you just start shooting fireballs, and everyone's like, dude, I don't think that guy can read, and it doesn't matter. You're still shooting fireballs at people. Use magic device just being like limitations on magic items. Nah, I'm not playing that game. is pretty incredible. And then Thief's Reflexes is kind of insane, but not like too crazy. Getting 2 turns in the first round of combat is awesome. You can really set yourself up for success, or and by the time you're 17th level, I imagine the kind of things that you're dealing with, getting 2 turns at the start of combat is definitely going to give you an advantage and an edge on whatever scenario you're in, but it's probably not going to break everything. Probably. Again, with use magic device, who knows? That could be 2 uses of something freaking insane. Um, so yeah, I think that Thief has some like neat kind of stuff in the beginning, but by the end of Thief, it's just you get to be any kind of thing you want. Like you may have started as this rogue who slinks in the shadows, but now you like throw holy avengers at people because just like I just do that. um so yeah, and I mean we have a Thief in one of Gene's games, and honestly, he's great. He very much fits that archetype very, very well of kind of being the supreme sneak and climbing over and around things, and there is something to be said for those iconic visuals of like a rogue sneaking up the side of a building with a full moon, in the night. Like that's cool shit. There's a reason we fight dragons when we play D&D. And Thief is the reason sometimes we play rogues when we play D, or you know. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the archetypes. The last bit that I kind of want to touch on before we move into our room of reflection is, listen, guys. A lot of stuff in D&D, just across the board, Player's Handbook, DMG, etc. If it's not a hard rule, it's all there as flavor. It's all there to be reskinned, reused, retooled. Just because one character makes a soul knife that has a gem that was like pushed into their skull, and now they have these wacky powers. For someone else, it could be, a wizard had a wild surge happen near them when they were born, and now they just have sort of manifested these strange blades they can't explain. All of these things, and I mean, we kind of say this at the end of every time we go through the subclasses, but they're all there to make your own. You know, an inquisitive rogue could be Batman or could be Sherlock, and while they're both detectives, they do it in very different ways.
Or the kid from Goonies could be an artificer, or he could be, an arcane trickster, but you flavor his arcane spells as little gadgets.
Yeah. Oh God, totally. And that's something to keep in mind with almost everything in D&D. There are some rules that there are rules there for a reason. And again, even then, some of those rules are stupid, so change them. Um, but same thing with like class descriptions. A phantom, is very much tied to the dead, but maybe you want it to be tied to the fae. Cool. Talk to your GM. Maybe there's a way that, as opposed to wailing thing, it's this sort of like piercing song that cuts through people, and trinkets, as opposed to like, maybe little voodoo skulls or something. It's gossamer. It's like a gossamer light that of a marble or something. Yeah. There's always a way that you can make a class work for a concept or a flavor that you want. Um, yeah, I think we're ready. We're not quite ready for the room of reflection.
Well, you jumped the gun, so I'm rolling a d20 for initiative.
All right.
I mean,
we are moving into another room. Clearly, I'm not a rogue, because if that was a trap, I just got hit by it.
Well, I rolled flat across a nice 11.
That's good. Let's see how I do. Oh, there it is. There it is.
At least this section is nice and quick because we've gone through all their strengths. So
right, yeah, we talked about kind of what they're good at and ways they can be cool. So kind of like we do with almost every class we cover, we're going to talk about what they're not great at too. And I'll start it off with very sort of obvious stuff. Rogues are agile, they're dexterous, they're good at getting out of the way of problems. but they're not really great in the hit point department, and they're also not great in the AC department. And now again, they don't exactly have wizard ACs, but they don't really have the ability to wear armor greater than studded leather. Like that's kind of where it stops. So and they can't use shields. So like studded leather plus dex is kind of where it starts and stops. Now there's multi-classing things you can do to help out with that armor class, but for a pure rogue, your AC is never going to get much better
I mean,
than.
arcane tricksters can get pretty solid with mage armor and shield.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. But your hit points, because Constitution's probably a tertiary stat for you, even sometimes a quaternary,
I
whatever it
don't.
is.
That's not a word.
That's probably not. I'm making shit up. But Constitution's not a primary concern for rogues. So, you know, there's a reason that you get like 3 different abilities that are like, oh god, don't hurt me. Like uncanny dodge is please hurt me less. Evasion is oh dear god, please hurt me less. And elusive is please don't have advantage while you're trying to hurt me. Because they need these kinds of defenses baked into their class because they're not great at taking hits or healing themselves. So
There's not a
uh
single self heal.
nope, nowhere in their class is that. So yeah, that's kind of one of their big glaring weaknesses. Gene, you wanna
Yeah.
move it on?
Yeah. So quickly, we talk about how awesome sneak attack. It is your main rogue class feature that no one else gets. It can be difficult to pull off depending on the size of the battlefield, depending on the spacing
Yeah.
of your enemies, depending on what archetype of rogue you have chosen. That you sometimes might feel that you are wasting turns because you couldn't pull off sneak attack. Doesn't mean you can't be doing other things or setting yourself up for a better turn next round, but just be aware that it is one of your main features that you are going to want to try to use as much as possible. And there are situations where it can be very difficult. Someone could cast darkness, something that gives you disadvantage, and that means that you cannot sneak attack, period. So
Yeah.
unless you get out of that situation, you're gonna have to deal with that. So be prepared that you may have to get janky, you may have to get a little weird to kind of figure out ways to use your ability.
Yeah, no, definitely. Gene, I'm gonna jump ahead one because I
Yeah.
think it relates a little bit to what you said. And there's a reason that, I talked about earlier that sometimes rogue tactics can feel a little dull and repetitive. And the part of the reason is because you want to try to get that sneak attack. If you find a zone, that you can hide, pop out, sneak attack, hide again. Like if you're in that rogue, like, hey, I'm doing my job, I'm getting those hits in, or at least trying, because hey, you're gonna miss sometimes. But like if no one's bothering you and you can just kind of do your rogue thing, you're going to just kind of go through not the motions, but you're just going to kind of go through the, hey, I hide to get advantage. I take that shot. I steady aim to get advantage. I take that shot or that swing. And yes, it might change as the battlefield changes, but like you might find yourself like, yep, guys, I've checked all the rogue boxes. I'm doing it, but it can be a little dull. So just keep that in mind.
Um, I think Rennie really touched with the poor HP, strength, and con saves. They're rough, buddy. Like unless you build a strength rogue. Not saying you can't. I know someone made the owl bear who was a barbarian rogue, and it was hilarious. But generally, you are not gonna make those saving throws are gonna be rough for you. So thunder spells are gonna be fucking sucky.
Yeah.
Pretty much things that target your weak stuff, and generally strength and con are likely going to be your weak set. And to also just touch on additionally with Rennie's, dull, repetitive combat stuff is you only get one attack around. Unless you dual wield, and dual wield is not great. Like, unless
It's
you
super
have,
not.
like, it's an offhand attack that does a die of damage, and nothing else added, but you could sneak attack with it. So like I know as a low level rogue, I often used it, but there's a lot of other cool shit you might want to be doing with your bonus action. So you're
Yeah.
reliably not going to be using it. And that one attack around is huge. So if you miss with it or don't get sneak attack with it, you can definitely feel it.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point to make. Um, another thing about rogues is you have very little access to magic. Again, beyond like Arcane Trickster and the very small group of supernatural themed rogues. They're definitely they live that sort of almost fighter life where, hey, I'm relying on what I got. Knives and leather. That's all I got. Um,
Sounds
and
sexy.
don't get me wrong, what's up?
Does it sound sexy?
It does a little bit, right? Maybe that's where that panache comes from, is you just like flex your leather butt at people and uh um but yeah, you now don't get me wrong, magic items are kind of a staple go-to for D&D, but inherently you might have a lot of abilities that let you do skill stuff and reading people, but it's like, man, if only we could magically make a bridge. You're just gonna be like, yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? That does sound cool. You don't just get a lot of inherent access to magic. And again, even Arcane Trickster, you're a third caster, so you're never gonna get high level magic. Um, so you can sometimes feel the mundane pressure of being a rogue. Now again, we talked about being the disarmer of traps and locks and stuff, but listen, in a world with wizards, you can feel less than sometimes. um, and again, that kind of just kind of snowballs into, and this is true. We said it for fighters. We said it for barbarians. It's true for rogues too. Is you might feel outshined by high level casters, because as much as Fifth Edition is a wonderful and one of the best editions of D&D, they've never quite gotten that balance right of, well, what happens when a 15th level wizard starts hanging out with people and can bend the laws of time and space, and everyone's just like, they bend the laws of time and space, and there's no real good answer. Fourth edition got close, but still,
Yeah.
you just as a rogue might feel a little outclassed.
Yeah, and then kind of like wrapping it up, which is we talked about this earlier, you're not very self-sufficient. Like you need a healer. You need
Mhm.
other party members for most rogue archetypes to be using some of your cooler abilities. You making sure they go off, making sure you hit that sneak attack. Um and you don't often have abilities as a rogue that give support to your team unless you're specifically like a mastermind or something that can help. So just kind of being self-aware of, you rely on your, like most D&D characters, you rely on your team and your team relies on you, but like you are a little bit more reliant on outside forces of healing you and saving you when the going gets tough, because you are
Yeah.
squishy. And yeah, and then I guess last, I guess the biggest downside without multi-classing is you don't got a lot of weapons to choose from, because
Nope.
you're mostly using dex weapons and you're not even getting all of them. Like I would think a whip is a sweet rogue weapon. You're not proficient.
Nope. No idea how
So
to use
so Catwoman, you're gonna have to figure out a way to get proficient with your whip. Like,
it.
so that's, and yeah, I think that kind of covers the rogue weaknesses.
Yeah, and guys, there might be, or gals, there might be some that we haven't thought of. By all means, hit us up in the chat and let us know if you think like, hey, well, rogues also fart really loudly. Like, whatever. Just let us
I
let us
mean,
know.
that ghostly whale is one huge rape.
That ghostly whale is it's hard to contain, as they might say. All right. So now moving into the room of reflection.
Reflection, reflection,
reflection. Reflection.
reflection. All right. So before we get into this room and roll initiative as due, If anyone has any questions from the chat, you want to start typing them now. That way we can answer any silly questions or rogue related
Yeah.
questions at the end of the room of reflection. Please do so.
Yeah, please.
So I guess without further ado, let's roll some fucking dice.
Initiative, motherfucker.
Going first.
How bad did you do?
I did pretty good. I got a 16.
Ooh, that is good. I'm worried. I don't think I'm gonna be able to pull off my initiative champion this session, Gene.
Nice.
It's fine. It's a room of reflection, man. We're relaxing. This is like chill out time. At least that's what I'm telling myself. Okay, yep, just chilling. Just chilling,
Just
bro.
chilling.
Big
Just
chilling.
chilling. All right. So I feel like much like we've said about the other classes that we've talked about, barbarian and fighter. Honestly, rogue is a great multi-class.
Super
First
duper is.
first level you get your sneak attack and expertise. Second level you get fucking the bread and butter of rogue, which is the bonus action, skills that engage, hide, and
Dash.
dashing, and and then if you stay long enough for an archetype, kind of told you how front loaded those third level archetypes are. So you're getting that extra. If you stay the 3 levels, you're getting your 2d6 sneak attack. Yeah, I think it's a great multi-class. I know I've dipped a few times as a few separate characters.
Yeah, and it definitely leans hard towards dex-based classes. Listen, a dex-based fighter, maybe an archery fighter with a little bit of rogue, you're gonna have a fucking great time. Monk and rogue, best friends. Uh, Same thing with like rangers and rogues. They go together very very well. Now, there's probably some outlying cases. You may have seen a certain Vaxeldan become a rogue paladin, which it works. Sneak attack and smite it's a hell of a drug, but you're probably gonna have the most success with dex based classes. But that's not to say that kind of the whole idea of multiclassing is sort of cherry picking abilities, right, from rogue uh, that are going to be good.
Oh,
Yeah, and I'll talk about the next one, and then we'll get to people's questions at the end. Do you think,
yeah,
or do you
yeah,
want to start?
yeah.
Okay.
No,
Um. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about feats, and Gene's going to chime in here occasionally. So feats and just certain abilities that go really well with rogues. I'm going to start us off with like, listen, rogues get one attack around, so because of that, that makes some of those blade spells, i.e., Green Flame Blade, Booming Blade, they make them incredible because you're only making one attack roll anyway. And, whether you play an elf and get that from your lineage, or you take a dip of multiclass to get that, like, you know, it's just another way to add damage to sneak attack. And, listen, Gene and me were talking, and like a phantom rogue who has green flame blade can really punish two people. You can pop that fire into that second target and hit them for that half sneak attack. And you
yeah.
can you can be really successful that way.
I'm very much a fan of booming blade and
Yeah,
disengage because you're like, cool. I ran 30 feet. No one else is near me. I attack you. I run away, and then you're like, cool. They
yeah,
have to move to get to you, so they're gonna take that
right.
thunder damage.
They're gonna eat that second half. Yeah. So yeah, spell cantrips, blade cantrips. That's the combination of words I was looking for. They are very very effective for rogues. Now it's very hard to kind of get them, so you have to like do a little like dipping of feats or races to get there. But they're awesome. I'm gonna go with some obvious feats. Listen, if you are a ranged rogue, ranged rogue, you're gonna have a really good time. You're just gonna have a great time. Sharpshooting plus ranged rogue, it's stupid good. You know, you're a class that's all about, you are a, if you want to go with some classic, you're a striker class. You're all about hitting and hitting hard as hell. That's what sharpshooter's all about.
Additionally,
Mobile.
crossbow expert.
Oh God, yeah, crossbow expert's phenomenal. And for some classes like skirmisher, listen, or not skirmisher, what am I saying? Swashbuckler, that idea of like cutlass and like hand crossbow that you have on like a bandolier where you like shoot someone, drop a hand crossbow, cut them, and then it's just cool. Like it's just cool. And also it just happens to be highly effective because if you miss with one attack, sneak attack with the other. So sharpshooter, crossbow expert. Listen, mobility. Rogues love mobility. Being able to stab someone and then run away with, and still getting your cunning action, so you don't have to use your disengage to roll out. Awesome.
I would say, definitely assassin build and certain other builds. Alert.
Alert. Oh God, yeah. That pumps your initiative up. Yeah, because some archetypes really go off of going before other people. Scouts are a big fan of alert.
Thief.
Yeah, thief. Oh God, yeah, thief. Also, again, alert kind of plays to that rogue built-in paranoia that we discovered of like, no one surprises me. I surprise people. They don't surprise me. Like, so that's fun. Um, there's some other probably combinations that that are out there. I don't know, anything else that you want to kind of touch on, Gene?
I mean, we kind of talked about it in the beginning, but if you play the humanist rogue that's ever humaned with like skill expert, prodigy, and skilled, you
Yes.
you can you can have like almost 15 out of the 18 skill or 20 skills of D&D.
Right.
And if you're that high level at that point, you're pretty much have a plus. You have the roll a natural 10 on everything, plus you're skilled in it. You can get really too good at a lot of things that maybe you shouldn't be that good at.
That's very true. Yeah, no, there's definitely a hard skill build. And maybe you take like 2 levels of bard. You don't even take the third level for a subclass. You're like, nah, I'm good at everything, and those 3 things I'm not great at, I'm pretty good at them too. Whatever. So there is like a really good skill rogue build out there. But yeah, a lot of the I'll say this: a lot of the like the Fey touched and Shadow touched, those things that give you kind of one use of like a Misty Step, awesome. You know, Listen, as a rogue, you're all about mobility, and hey, sometimes if someone like grabs you and you're like, I don't want to fight this grapple, I'm just gonna go. I'm leaving. Goodbye. That's sometimes a really good idea. Um, so yeah, rogues. Not only are they great multiclassers, but there are some powerful rogue builds out there with feats and certain abilities kind of sprinkled in. You want to talk about the next thing, Gene?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, we could both talk about the next thing, which is personal anecdote. I mean, I'll tell you, I love being a swashbuckler. Is so fucking silly to like talk your way in and out of a situation and kind of push that envelope as far as it can.
yeah,
Uh, and I will say, though, looking at some of these new rogues and actually getting an eye opened for them, I have a new appreciation for some of these archetypes. I never even considered them, but like Ocelotus mentioned this like vampire phantom, and I was like, ooh, that sounds sexy. Like I
that
do want
sounds
to.
dope.
And in my heart, one of my first few rogues was an arcane trickster, so I always got a little bit love of them. So
Yeah,
my personal anecdote is rogues are fun. You even though we said they're
Gene, you should talk about that time you played chess with a
oh
demon
that is
as a swashbuckler, and you just like finger guns your way to
oh yeah.
victory.
Yeah, we Rennie and I played a whole bunch of Adventurers League, and there was a great interactive module. They don't call them interactives anymore, epics. And one of the things is you had to deal with these like 3 barons of hell, and it was like you had to make fun of one, you had to like joke one, another one, or you had to play a game or gamble with one. So like me and this like bard or warlock just went and we're like, we'll gamble. And like the guards are like, what's the password? I'm like, blam blam blam, charm. Hey, what is the password? We're friends here. And they're like, that's the password. I was like, cool guys. We got the whole group in with very little issue. And then we chose our choice, and I was like, cool, well, I'm skilled in dragon chess, and so I have reliable talent.
I hate you.
And I like crushed a devil lord with like a 30 because they buffed me ridiculously, and I was like, this is what it means to
This
be a
feels
rogue.
good.
You walk into a room, smooth talk a fucking devil, play chess and win and gamble on it, get the fuck out, and then find that someone stole your sweet car. Son of a bitch.
Hey, you left. That car was mine.
Greatest rogue antidote. You steal a motorcycle and you ride it in with your mage fighter best friend into combat.
Yeah, no, that to me was one of those moments where I was like, and swashbuckler is ridiculous. There we go. I'll be honest, I don't play rogues very often, to be perfectly honest. I have a number. I have a fair, I have a few, but I don't probably have any rogue anecdotes off the top of my head. But I'm seeing questions kind of pop up. So, Gene, do you want to hit the first one and I'll get the next? Do you want me to hit the first one?
Yeah, I'll read the first one.
Yeah, read it up.
Ocelot is 77. What do you think the biggest weakness is that holds true across all archetypes? I know my answer.
That's a great answer, or a great question. That's a great question.
My answer, flight. If a creature flies and has or like can move and get out of range, I don't think without support from your friends a rogue is very effective, because unless you're like specifically built as an archer, but like I'm just saying generic rogue across all archetypes, I think a flying creature is
yeah, that's solid. I'm gonna be honest. For mine is the lack of ways to deal with adverse conditions, because you get proficiency with wisdom saves, and you have evasion, and you have uncanny dodge, which definitely helps against damage, but you have almost no inherent class-based ways to get out of conditions. Monks or like paladins get like immune to poison and disease real quick. Monks get stillness of mind. They can spend ki and stop being charmed. Certain barbarians can just rage out of being frightened. Like, certain classes are like, hey, conditions are a problem. Let's do something about it. Rogues are like, hey, I got cartwheels, and they're good. That's great. But they don't have ways to like stop being blinded, stop being diseased, stop being, so that would be, I think, the biggest, one of their biggest weaknesses. Because again, there's a lot of conditions that give you disadvantage, a lot. So, and as soon as you get disadvantage, you're kind of a crappy fighter. So, you're gonna feel the burn if a condition gets on you that you can't shake. All right, I guess I'll read the next one. Yeah. Mrs. Hades Games asks, what type of rogue would you be? Who out of your real life friends would be the rogue?
So I'm gonna flip it a little. I know
All
what
right.
kind of rogue I'm be. I'm gonna say what kind of rogue you'll be.
Oh, what kind of rogue would I be?
So I feel that for you, because you can talk yourself in and out of most situations, I would say you'd be a swashbuckler.
I feel like, I don't think I got fancy footwork, but I think the charisma side, sure, I'll take it. All right, let me look at the rogue archetypes. Shitlord. I'm not seeing shitlord.
There's definitely a shitload.
You know what, Gene? I'm actually gonna say for you, because if we're gonna play this, like, I'm gonna say what you are. I think you'd be an inquisitive. I think that you are good at analyzing people, and you're good at sort of like assessing scenarios. And again, I'm not saying you always make your check and make the best decisions, but I think you have a good eye for figuring people and places out.
I would have went with either mastermind or inquisitive. Like, not bragging for myself, but I'm good at helping other people. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm an ideas guy, so I feel like I can give the help action from far away.
Totally.
I'm not a master of disguise or master deceiver, but I was just like, those are my two choices for me, inquisitive or what? What were your choice for yourself?
For me, I probably said swashbuckler. I mean, again, it's like, what rogue do I want to be, or what rogue would I be? Because if I want to be an arcade trickster. Because magic,
Yeah,
magic is the fucking coolest.
Okay, to be fair, if we could be any rogue, I want to be a goddamn phantom. If I can fucking prove the dead and like talk with the life and learn any fucking skill or thing I needed in a situation, yeah, I'd be a fucking phantom. That thing is sweet as
That's
shit.
cool. Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, fuck being a person without powers.
Well, Gene, what would your trinket be? What would your soul trinket be?
I would like it's like different trinkets, so I think it would have to be items on that person, because like I've always kind of not like I'm not superstitious, but like I don't know, I kind of get the idea that like you wear an item that has part of you in it. So like if
sure,
so like if I killed you, one of your rings would appear on my fingers or something. Like people's items that like an earring or different different things that are very personal to them would like appear in my pockets and shit.
Cool. All right, read the next one.
All right. If you were going, this is DJ Poser. If you were going to multi-class with Rogue, when do you make that dip outside of Rogue? How far into Rogue so you level up?
That's a really good question.
So if I'm going into Rogue, I'd only go about 3 levels. That's generally my rule for multi-class. If I'm going out,
which you always follow, sure.
If I'm going out of Rogue, I'd wait till I have evasion.
Yeah, no, that's super smart. Yeah, no, I mean, because like evasion is one of those like you don't. There's 2 classes that get it, and one is monk, one is rogue. And if you're gonna start as a rogue, you might as well get one of their best, abilities, bar none, before you multi-class out. Multi-classing in, and I'll say this: as much as that 3 levels is a good call, because you don't take away too much from your primary class. Listen, there might be a 6th level ability that is just it works killer, like super killer well with the kind of build you're going for, or maybe just even like, hey, I'm a detective for the outer planes, and if I get this ability, it just makes super good sense for the kind of stuff I want to accomplish. So I would say, how much do you multi-class into it? That's a little bit of a judgment call, but 3 levels is a safe bet, I would say. All right, I'll read the next one. Ooh, Ocelot 77. Elephant in the room. Why do all PC rogues feel they need to withhold items or information from the party? I've never played with a rogue that was a true companion type of party member. Yeah, no, Ocelotus, it is the great, I don't know about mystery of our time, but, you do often a lot see some of those negative traits that you find in players, like not playing with the team, taking away from fun as opposed to adding to fun. You see a lot of times they tend towards rogues and maybe warlocks, and something like that. And I don't know exactly about the why. Everyone's head a little different, but I think, to the best of my ability, I would say that the rogue class it lends itself well to that loner mentality. It lends itself well to that, like, hey, I have skills and stuff that let me steal and get away with it, or do shitty things and then hide from people. And I think when people play those kind of characters, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not trying to enter anyone's brain and tell you how it works, but I think a lot of times when people play those kinds of rogues with sort of selfish intention, or at least, they have this idea of like, well, we're going to play this game together, but I'm going to do it this way. And I'm like, I think they approach it from a very myopic kind of viewpoint, and they don't look at it from maybe an out of character perspective of like, hey, as much as I might be like this loner dude who hasn't seen the sun in 5 years, I am also a human person who is trying to play a game with other human people. And we all want to have fun doing that. And, skipping that step is problematic, to say the least.
I also think that in the older editions of D&D and like prestige classes and even second ed, there wasn't a lot of description besides thief or bard. And I think now with the archetypes, they kind of flavor you a little bit more like you could be Sherlock Holmes. You could be a guy that knows shit about the dead, and so people didn't have that thought option to be a new type of rogue. Already, I'm gonna answer that question that you're shaking your head at. I'm so excited for it. I already have the answer. Anyway, but I think the whole idea is like when you look at it, it's like assassin, thief, arcane trickster's a little weird, but like that start off was like, okay, I'm probably a shitheel, but then you have like inquisitive, a scout, you have these different swashbuckler. You're a heroic rogue, and so I think with these extra options, it'll give people a better chance to play a goodly rogue. Like I know I play a rogue in Adventurers League with Rennie, and my character is very open. He's like a drunken layabout, but he's he'll steal secrets for the party. He's a team player.
Yep.
And so you can play the good. It's not the hard.
Yeah, you once seduced a Gorgon for us. It was great.
Yeah. All right. So DJ Poser asked the real question, which is
DJ Poser.
If you're in a campaign with a low level of magic items and your enemy has an AC of -4 and your THAC0 to hit armor class AC 0 is 18, what combinations of skills, fears, and abilities would you use to attack them best? I'm going to say fuck your question, but I will answer it for the rogue answer. I would attack them from behind with my friend flanking, so I would have a +4 to hit. I would deny them their dex modifier. So that would likely adjust their AC from a -4 to anywhere to like a 0 or like a 2. And then with my feats don't exist in second ed. You can't use THAC0 and feats, bitch. Anyway. And so that would probably hopefully make their like AC a 2. And then that means that I would have a chance to hit them on a 16 up. Or if I'm lucky, without any of that cool stuff, it would be a natural 20. So boom! Also, I'd have 2 times damage from backstab. Go fuck yourself. Nailed that.
I have a follow-up, Mark. You're the worst. Okay. I think that's all the questions that we got through chat. By the way, thank you, chat. Those were some really awesome questions. Except for Mark. Everyone but Mark. So yeah, thanks again.
No, I enjoyed it. I remember THAC0. I enjoyed that shit.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, trust me, in my head, I'm like, all right, well, that's a 22. Okay, if you lower to, you don't lose that shit, man. You don't lose it.
And Mark, assuming it's not a construct or undead, because if it's not, all that shit's thrown out.
Right. Yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up for this dungeon. G, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we nailed it.
I think we snuck our way into the rogue class.
We uncannily move through the topics.
Uncannily, definitely not a word. That's
Listen, you made up a word earlier. I will claim my version of making up a word right this moment.
That's your made up word for tonight? Sweet. All right, well, guys, I want to thank everyone who joined us for this evening. This is a ton of fun. Gene, is there anyone you want to thank specifically?
Yeah. So as of May 14th, we got Kibbo_Kishimo who followed us.
Nice.
And that's really cool. Thank you so much. shout outs. Thank you for the chat. DJ Poser, Ocelotus. Miss Hades game, which is Julia. Thank you
Thank you
guys
for being our moderator.
for modding and participating. That really helps out. I will say, nice, Ocelotus. I will say, if you had fun with Rennie and I tonight, tomorrow we debut our newest D&D game. It's a homebrew called Lost Legacy. I am the Dungeon Master. Rennie is playing. So is Miss Hades' game. Also, the DM from Players and Creators is joining us, and then 3 others of my close friends and family. And so tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our Twitch channel, we will be doing our first Lost Legacy, and that will be a bi-weekly game. So I'm excited for that. Rennie and I have done a shitload of work. Oh no, Rennie's gonna have to like sub out on the Warlock episode.
I feel like Gene is gonna like hold a gun to my head and be like, "You're doing Warlocks."
I'm gonna Warlocks.
So bad.
But yeah, so we're gonna do that on Tuesday, and not this week, but we'll probably pick up Curse of Strahd in the next few weeks because Memorial Day weekend. So we're gonna probably take a break Friday and Monday, and yeah, we have a lot more coming out. We've been working hard. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I wanna mention real quick. I think Mondays is gonna be our home for Dungeon Delvers. So we're essentially gonna try to do 2-hour shows. I know we're a little over 2 hours, not by much, but just a little. And yeah, so Mondays is going to be Dungeon Delvers. Now, I know as soon as I say that, the next thing I'm going to say is, but but maybe next week, maybe not. I know it's Memorial Day, so we're going to kind of play it by ear, to be perfectly honest. But do expect us on regular weeks to have a Dungeon Delver for you on Mondays. Again, as always, if there's a topic that you think of besides Warlock, if there's a topic that you can think of that you think that we should cover or that you're interested in hearing about more about, heck, it could be even something that we don't know about. We'll learn. We'll figure it the fuck out. We have all these links. They are here, right? Am I doing it right?
Other side. Point
Yeah,
the other
you're
way.
right. You're right. Other side. It's other side. So all these links for unconventional heroes at our Twitter, at our Instagram, on Facebook, hit us up and put at Dungeon Delvers so we know what to look for. We'd love to hear from you. Honestly, it's our favorite thing is that you guys come in here and ask us dumb questions about Thakos. It's a lot of fun for us, and as much as we like to hem and haw, we truly, sincerely, really appreciate it.
All right, I was yelled at by our moderator. So tomorrow, Tuesday, May 25th at 7:30 p.m. will be Lost Legacy. Just in case people are not reading our chat. So, if you like D&D, please join us.
Yeah, it'd be great.
And yeah, I feel like we're good.
Gene, I think it's time to cunning action and disengage our way out of here. That's terrible.
Oh
I don't even feel
God,
good
I'm
about
going right to the wrap.
it. See you later.
Hold up. Yeah. Bye, guys.
I mean,